Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valeria Ochoa, Community Educator here at Southern Caregiver Resource Center, and I'm so happy to be here with everyone virtually. Welcome. Feel free to take out a pen, a piece of paper, or if you're tech savvy, take notes on your smart phone. And feel free to just share this information that I'm about to talk about with all of you today. What better way to kick off the year of celebrating 35 years of service at Southern Caregiver Resource Center than to get the ball rolling and talk about ways that we can be grateful for the family caregiver, that individual who is so dedicated in providing service, providing care for their loved ones, or the individual that they are supporting. Next slide. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about ways that you can be grateful for the family caregiver. And hopefully, at the end of this presentation, you take away these learning objectives with you. Understand how ways of how you can understand the family caregiver role. This is just a friendly reminder of what caregivers do on a daily basis, what they do for their loved ones. You will learn the importance of cultivating a mindset, because what better way to start off the year than on a positive note. We will obtain some communication tips on how you can be appreciative verbally to your family caregiver, to the individual who's supporting you, as well as ways that you can show gratitude besides, of course, verbal cues, verbal appreciation, comments, just different ways that you can show gratitude on a daily basis to the family caregiver or that friend, family member who's supporting you. Next slide, please. I want to start off this quote unquote conversation that I'd like to have with all of you on the other side of the screen. Think about and ponder how your previous year has been, how 2021 was for you, how your interactions were with your family caregiver, who that individual is. I know that a lot of us were very stressed, of course, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of us may have miscommunicated with our family caregiver or the care receiver, and some of us may have grown closer with this individual who's constantly providing care. Whichever that is for you who's watching me today, I want you to reflect on how your conversations have been and bringing it closer to now the present, how your day has been today, how your interaction has been with your family caregiver, and overall how your relationship is, how you show appreciation to this individual on a daily basis. Next slide. And the reason why I ask you to reflect, what better way, again, to start the year than on a positive note and reflect on how your year is. I know that a lot of us set New Year's resolutions. So one of them can be for us in the caregiving journey, in the caregiving world, is to learn ways on how we can be more appreciative to the family caregiver. That individual who's providing constant care. It can be a family member. It could be your friend. Those of you who are watching me today, think about who that is, your sibling, a neighbor. It could be a child who's supporting his or her parents. It could be a grandparent. We live in a world with kinship families that are also caregivers. Which one are you, and who is providing that care for you? And as you reflect about this, next slide, please. I want you to think about the importance of family caregivers and the kind of role that they play in your life besides being family caregivers. I wanted to incorporate this quote. It's my absolute favorite within the caregiving world. It's a statement that was made by the former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. There are 4 kinds of people in this world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And the reason why I incorporated this lovely quote on here is because it really highlights the importance of caregivers within our world today, really. At some point, we're continuously aging. The human body is aging. And at some point, if you think about it, we will all need caregivers. So why not show that we appreciate this individual, show our appreciation verbally or through actions on a daily basis. And not only that, develop this relationship with this individual so that we can ultimately have a better quality of life and enjoy our life on a daily basis. Next slide. So think about this individual. Again, it could be a friend, it could be a loved one, a spouse. Are they helping you and supporting you full time, part time, or long distance? On a long distance, these individuals can provide a different level of care, again, full time, part time, or long distance. But ultimately, what they all have in common is that they provide a level of care. I used to care for my aunt I would like to say, full time, and also from a long distance because she lived right across the border, and it was a whole convoluted situation, but that was just my specific caregiving situation. I was a caregiver full-time and long distance as well. And I know that a lot of you can relate with me because I know that for those of you who are watching me today, you may be the care receiver or the caregiver. So think about what kind of level of care and what your caregiving journey or caregiving experience is like. Regardless whether you're a full-time caregiver, you're supporting someone part-time, whether that's helping them with their finances from a distance or a long distance caregiver, what we all have in common is that we provide a level of care for the individual that we're supporting and looking out for, our loved one. Next slide. These things that we do as caregivers can incorporate some of these things on this slide, and these are just a few from a very long list of responsibilities and duties that we have as caregivers. We support our loved one with their activities of daily living. Think about what your loved one, the caregiver, has done for you, for the care receivers who are watching me today. Think about whether or not this individual has helped you with your finances today. Maybe they helped you get out of bed this morning. They helped you get dressed this morning. They also helped meal plan and prepared your breakfast, lunch, or brunch, or dinner. Think about all these things, the things that your family caregiver has done for you. I know that as caregivers, we try to do it all, and sometimes it can be very stressful to do it alone, and it can be very difficult to get all these things done on a daily basis. If there's the relationship with the care receiver isn't quite there, or sometimes we may feel unappreciated, we may feel at times devalued because the conversations that we have with the care receiver may not go as well. Sometimes, from the point of the care receiver, we need to step back for a moment and think about what this individual is doing for us on a daily basis. Like, for example, on here, maintaining a living environment that can include maintaining a safe environment for you, putting night lights in the hall, putting color-coded stickers on the glass, sliding door in the bathroom in your by your bathtub. Those are all ways that family caregivers provide support for you as a care receiver on a daily basis that we don't continuously and constantly think about at times. It can go unappreciated sometimes. Next slide. And with this, I'd like to mention that we do, as family caregivers, face challenges. Now, I don't want to take away from the positive tone, but at times with caregivers and care receivers, there may be frustration with the situation that they're going through. If your loved one was newly diagnosed with, for an example, dementia or related, like Alzheimer's or related dementia, you may be frustrated with the situation. There may be miscommunication, lack of support, and ultimately, this can take an emotional toll on both you, the care receiver, and also the caregiver. And this can eventually lead to caregiver burnout or stress. That's why it's so important to have an effective communication with the caregiver and show that you're appreciative of them, and really show that you're within this team effort that both of you have and are cultivating together. Next slide. If the stress goes unchecked, if the appreciation isn't there, the positive affirmations aren't there, and the environment isn't that well, with little to no support, as often caregivers face this. A lot of caregivers really are on the verge of caregiver burnout with, again, the little support that they have. They're full-time caregivers doing it all, and I definitely understand that. Again, as a former caregiver, you can face caregiver burnout in the long run, or in the near future, really, if it goes unhandled. So as care receivers, we can definitely help check, keep an eye out for the signs of physical, emotional, and behavioral changes, taking a physical toll on themselves. So for example, what are some physical stressors that can affect the caregiver? Maybe if you, as the care receiver, you notice some changes, such as, oh, they start telling you that their knees hurt. They start telling you, oh, they're constantly touching their back, letting you know that their back is hurting. Those are signals that we can pick up as a care receiver to just a wake up call for us to let us know that it's time to support and help the caregiver, the individual who is providing care for us. Next slide. So what can we do? There's a multitude amount of things that we can do as caregivers, but one of the best things that we can do as care receivers, is that we can show our gratitude in different ways to our family caregivers, because what better way to reward them than to share our gratitude with them and let them know that they are doing a right job, that they are doing the best that they can for us. And supporting us as family caregivers. Caring for the caregiver is a great way to start this new year by sharing our gratitude with our caregivers. Next slide. So how can we do this? How can we tell or let our caregiver know that we're grateful for everything that they do for us on a daily basis, whether it's full-time, part-time, or long-distance caring that they're giving us and providing for you? Well, the number one thing that we can do is show verbal appreciation. Something as simple as taking a deep breath in a hard situation. Maybe you're bumping heads and not necessarily agreeing with things, but taking a deep breath and letting them know, okay, I appreciate everything that you're trying to do for me. Thank you for everything that you do for me on a daily basis. And thank you for what you're doing right now. Positive feedback goes hand in hand with affirmations. Some of you may have heard me speak already in the past, but I am a strong believer in affirmations within the caregiving world and the relationship that we are close again with the care receivers. Positive feedback and affirmations can make the biggest difference in the world when we're trying to show the caregiver that we appreciate them. Something such as, wow, this meal was really great. Thank you so much. I really needed this refreshment. I appreciate what you just did for me. Or thank you so much for giving me that the lovely bath. I really enjoyed that. Thank you for helping me get my back and scrubbing it. Thank you. It felt like a moment of relaxation for me. That's positive feedback, and in a way, you're affirming the caregiver that what they're doing is right. That they're genuinely helping you, and that you're enjoying their company as well. A lending hand. If you're noticing the stressors that I pointed out, physical, mental changes, if you notice that they're showing signs that their back is aching, their knees are hurting, then you can help them. For example, as you're getting out of bed in the morning, you can scoot yourself a little bit towards the edge, so you can, if you use a wheelchair, you can have that independence that you want and get on the wheelchair while helping the caregiver so that they're not putting so much strain on their back. And again, these are just examples out of many that I can give you. And I'm sure that you are reflecting back on your moments and your situations that you've had with a care receiver. Being patient, showing gratitude, exercising compassion are all ways that you can let your caregiver know that you're grateful for them and everything that they do for you. Next slide. Respect for the caregiver is another way that we can show gratitude for our family caregiver. Whether, again, it's a neighbor who's supporting you, whether it's a friend, whether it's a adult child who's supporting you, or a spouse. Respect is one of the fundamental ways that we can show that we are grateful for the caregivers, for the individual who's supporting us. And I'd like to read this quote by the American Association of Retired Persons. At times, we may say things to a caregiver that are in fact disrespectful. And hey, that happens to all of us. No one intends to be offensive, but sometimes better understanding of the caregiver's perspective can make a huge difference in how they view their work and whether they feel valued or valuable. And this is why I started off by talking about the caregiver, what they do for you, for the care receiver, what they do for their loved ones, what the caregiving journey entails, if you're part-time, full-time, or long distance, because we want to have that caregiver perspective and really understand everything that they do for us. And of course, we're all human. And if you're in a tough situation, sometimes we may say things that are offensive. We may say it in a way that sounds offensive, that sounds derogative, that sounds difficult to take in and swallow. And at times, the caregivers may feel disrespected by the individual that they're supporting, whether that's because they said something or it's an action that they observed. How can we show respect and ultimately show that we're grateful for the caregiver by, again, being respectful for this individual? Next slide. Well, examples that I included on here are different types of communications, and from that is a positive communication, verbal communication, statements that I wanted to include in here, do and don't statements, or I would do it differently. For example, two statements I got sometimes with my aunt. It would be, for example, go do this or get me that. Can you please, without the word please, really, get me that. It sounds demanding, unappreciative, judgmental at times, especially if we're, again, in a difficult situation, we're agitated. Do statements, like an example that I just gave, can make the caregiver doubt their role, their ability to help you. It really just implements seeds in the caregiver's head that what they're doing isn't appropriate or isn't the right way. So instead of using do statements, we can try a different approach, and I would be talking about it soon in the next slide. But I would do it differently. Statements are also common, and I've heard a lot of our clients here at Southern Caregiver Resource Center share their experiences of when their loved one would say, "You did this wrong. I would do it differently, and I would do it this way." And sometimes these statements are made because, again, there's frustration. The care receiver wants to be independent. And at times when they become frustrated, they may use these statements too, and I would do it differently statements. For example, this one implies that there is only one way to accomplish things. And really, when you come across a scenario or situation like this, that's really what the message that is often picked up and taken from the care receiver's point of view, from the caregiver's point of view, I apologize. So a different way that we can approach this, so to approach these statements on a more positive note, next slide, is by using more affirming or more flexible statements. Instead of making a do statement, you can say, "Can you please get this for me? Will you please do this for me. Will you please help me with this? Now you're not telling the person to do something for you. You're asking them, you're communicating with them to help you out as a care receiver. I gave this presentation in person with a cohort, and when I started talking about this, a lot of the care receivers and caregivers started participating, and they started telling me that these statements, this kind of mindset and shift in your mindset to make more optimistic, more positive statements really does make the biggest difference in the world when you're trying to have that positive relationship and again cultivate that relationship with the caregiver. And it also really helps set the tone for your day. I would do it differently statements. You can try to restate those in how about we try this? Okay, we tried it your way. How about we try this? And maybe we will have a different outcome. Or how about we try this? I've done it before and it's worked out. It's worked for me. I feel good about it. Maybe you'll like it as well. It's in a way we're compromising in that way by having these better, more positive statements. We're showing the caregiver that we appreciate them and we're willing to compromise and work really in a team effort with them. Next slide. Remember, one of the ways that we can start off the year is with a positive mindset. That's one of the objectives for this presentation, is that you leave, after you watch this live stream, is that you leave with a positive mindset on how you can be more appreciative for the caregiver, and not only through positive verbal communication, but also by developing a more positive environment with the caregiver. If you're with your caregiver 24/7 on a continuous basis, you see each other every single day, then this is something that you might want to take into consideration. These statements into cultivating and developing that positive environment, and ultimately, where this is a way that you can express your gratitude for the caregiver. Next slide. Looking on the bright side is also a way of, again, developing and flipping the switch and developing that positive mindset as a care receiver and also as a caregiver. Focusing on the present and maybe not necessarily dwelling on the past, dwelling on your diagnosis, what you could have done better. That's all in the past. So we need to leave it in the past and focus on the present and see how we can improve. As care receivers, we can show our gratitude for the caregiver by practicing compassion, practicing patience. If you see that the caregiver is burnt out or on the verge of being burnt out, focus on what you can do to help the caregiver and not what you can't do for them. For example, if you are able to cook by yourself, you can do so and with some assistance of the caregiver, and you can focus on taking that opportunity to cook and also have a conversation, for example, with the caregiver. So looking on the bright side, having assistance is something that a lot of us, if you don't feel comfortable with, but taking the opportunity to cultivate and create something that's a little bit more optimistic can definitely help you and the caregiver to take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. Practicing compassion and patience is a big one for all of us, like I mentioned, but it's one of the greatest things that we can give to the family caregiver as they go about their day and they're helping you with your activities of daily living. A lot of them full-time workers, they have little ones at home, and they have their, again, second shift at home doing their activities of daily living and tasks. So being compassionate and patient towards them is definitely a way that we can share our gratitude with our family caregivers. Next slide. Let's talk about now about mistakes that we make, that we unavoidably make as humans and as people. A way that we can show another way that we can show gratitude towards our caregivers is by being forgiving. If the caregiver, the individual who's supporting you, makes a mistake, affirm them. You can, again, going back to affirmations, you can let them know, oh, that's okay, we can try again next time. Or oh, that's okay, how about we do this instead. Letting them know that mistakes are okay, and affirming them and letting them know that you can support them and better support them is also a way of showing gratitude. It's all the matter from based on the matter of perspective from both the caregiver and, I would like to say, the care receiver, on how you approach mistakes, how you approach difficult situations. It's all part of the mindset and the opportunity that you get to take a breather, calm down, and let the caregiver know, hey, it's okay. It's okay. How about we try this? And just affirming them and really accepting that us as care receivers and as caregivers, we all make mistakes, and it's okay. And it's part of the caregiver experience and caregiver journey. Next slide. Part of the mistakes, after, if you've noticed that your loved one has made a mistake or you made a mistake, part of that is to use some words of encouragement. Encourage the caregiver to not beat themselves down, and not only that, encourage them to take care of themselves. You can ask them about their day. You can make a thoughtful gesture, such as, if in the morning, making them a cup of coffee or a cup of tea as they get ready to turn the shower on and warm it up for you. You can do something like making them a cup of tea, or making them a cup of coffee, to show your gratitude for them, because we really, really want to really highlight the fact that we want our caregivers to take care of themselves. So offering a lending hand. If it's bath time, okay, I am going to go get the towel for myself. I'll set up my clothes in the bedroom. This is just the tiniest way that we don't think about on a continuous basis, that we can show gratitude for this individual or loved one, the caregiver who's helping us. You can also offer them and encourage self-care for the caregiver. Give them some time to care for themselves. Maybe after a long day, you can let them know, go for a walk. I know you love going for a walk, and I'll be okay at home for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the time may be, and you can go for a walk. I know that I spoke with a caregiver about a week ago. I ran across her at the park, and I saw her walking, and I, of course, approached her and I asked her how her day was, and she let me know that she was having a great time because her mother told her that it was okay for her to step away from her home for 30 minutes to go on a walk, and that for her, that was a great way of affirming her and letting her know that she's okay to do these things for herself. And of course, I let her know, it's funny that you're telling me this, because I'm doing a live stream about how to be grateful for the caregiver, and this is a way that your mother is showing you that she cares about you and she appreciates that what you do for her on a daily basis as a caregiver. So giving them the time to care for themselves and encouraging, really, again, highlighting self-care for the caregiver is important. Next slide. Because if the caregiver is okay, ultimately the care receiver is going to be okay. You're going to be okay. If the caregiver is well mentally and physically, they will be able to provide adequate care for the care receiver, for the individual who's receiving the care. These are a couple tips that I've just given you. There's a multitude, again, of amount of suggestions that we can give you. But again, I encourage you to go and thank the caregiver. Let them know that you appreciate them for everything that they do for you. And verbal appreciation affirmations are one of the best ways that you can show that you appreciate the caregiver. Aside from, of course, encouraging them to focus on self-care and advocating for them to go on a walk, taking a breather, and perhaps exercising as well. Let's start the year on a positive note by thanking our caregivers and thanking them for everything that they do. Now I'd like to, next slide, move on to just encouraging every single one of you, if you haven't already, to explore our website at caregivercenter.org, or give us a call at 800-827-1008 if you would like to utilize our services, or if you would like to connect anyone to one of our team members to get you connected to our services, or perhaps you just need a couple of tips or information on how to better navigate your role. Feel free to explore our website. All of our services are 100% free. We don't require any proof of income, proof of citizenship status, or employment status for anyone to utilize our services. Feel free to connect with us. We're here to help you. And along with that, I'd like to share, next slide, for those of you who are watching from afar outside the San Diego County. I know I've come across a lot of individuals who reside outside the San Diego County who are watching from afar. Feel free again to explore our website, because that way you can access our online services, such as this live stream and more presentations that we have on our Caregiver Corner. You can watch a quick 1-minute tip video on a topic such as this, or topics such as emergency preparedness, meal planning, how to kick off and get a head start on the year, and how to prevent falls, and more. And there's abundant amount of topics that we have that are revolved on the caregiving world. Feel free to tune in into our podcast to stay tuned with the update, most recent and most current information that's going on at SCRC by subscribing to our newsletter, so you can receive that, and you will receive that digitally, so it's very convenient. Next slide. And I'd also like to point out that I'd like to invite all of you to stay connected with us as well, so you can stay updated on events such as this. We're having a virtual day of caregiving, an annual giving day to support family caregivers. This is one of the ways that we're able to do what we do every single day at Southern Caregiver Resource Center, and it will kick off on February 18th. It's a fundraiser where you get the opportunity to support the family caregiver, and you receive a lovely felt handmade heart, such as the one in the image, but that's not the actual one, but it looks very similar to it. You will receive one after making a donation to remind you of your generous donation and contribution to family caregivers. We are also having another event, or piling up the agenda. Next slide. With another event that's coming soon, and it's a virtual fundraising event as well. It's a tea party in Wonderland. Some of you may be familiar with the tea party virtual event that we had last year. So it was so successful that we decided to do it this year as well. This is another way that you can support family caregivers and support our organization. And it's a way that you can connect virtually with individuals who love tea. I love tea, so I will be there to interact and learn about tea, learn how this is a way to relieve stress and help the family caregiver, and how this is a great activity to incorporate within your household if you haven't already. This will take place sometime around March this year. Next slide. We will also be having, once again, our SCRC Sounds of Summer benefit concert. So please feel free to save the date. We will be sending out a digital newsletter again and posting on our social media platforms more information about this event. And this is just meant to get to the opportunity to go outside, interact, listen to some music, and come together to support the family caregiver. This is another way that we fundraise and we are able to do what we do. So keep an eye out for these upcoming events. There are much more that I won't be including, that I didn't include in this presentation, and I will have to save the juicy details for another time. So feel free to connect with me. Connect with one of the representatives so you stay connected and informed on the kinds of events that we're having here at SCRC. Next slide. If you haven't done so already, feel free to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Facebook and Instagram is where we will be posting more information on the events that I just talked about, as well as our website. Next slide. On www.caregivercenter.org. That is the best way to stay connected with us and stay up to date with the information that is the latest events that are going on at SCRC. Again, feel free to shoot us a call at 800-827-1008, and we would be more than happy to connect with you. Thank you for joining me for this live stream on how we can be more grateful and care for the caregiver, starting off and kicking off the year on a positive note. Feel free to, again, connect with us, and I will see you next time. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.